platform, but we'll be broadcasting live on YouTube as well. Okay. Hi, Olarunke, Adenike, good evening. How are you today? You can unmute your mic. I guess you have the capacity to unmute your mic, but if you do not, just use the chat functionality to tell us where you're joining us from. There's a poll in the audience, or there's a poll that you can take to quickly tell us where you're joining us from this evening. And welcome again to Bits and Bytes webinar. Welcome again to Bits and Bytes webinar. This is where we talk about all things technology, whether it's emerging or traditional. We talk about everything. We attempt to shed more light on current issues. So because we are still expecting a lot more people, we would hold off on starting, and we should be able to kick off by 5:05 or 5:10 thereabouts. Hey, Olarok, I've seen your chat. Good evening. Where are you joining us from this evening? All right, you're coming from Nigeria. So am I. I am coming from Nigeria. So let's play a quick game. I'm hoping I'll be able to pin it to the chat room. Will you tell us where you're joining us from and what your current role is? And why you want to join this webinar? Are you a no-code enthusiast? So I'll put a template in the chat room. I'll just write I'm a product manager, which I am. And let's say have some no-code skills. I'm just going to write no-code enthusiast and who was the spelling? Yeah, right. So let's do that okay. And while we're waiting on that, I'm just going to go on YouTube and find us some music so we do not have a very boring room while we wait for more people to join. And while we're waiting on that, I'm just going to on YouTube and find out some music so we do not have a very boring room while we wait for more people to join. And while we're waiting on that, I'm just going to yeah. My baby, my Valentine. And I had to make you a temperature. You leave me a good time. I swear.
You are like the oxygen I need to survive. I'll be honest. Loving people don't need me. I am so obsessed. I want to talk your mouth. Never did it, but I need you. What the better is you. Let me love one too. Make the man see. $1,000 that you spent for your head. Talk all the ones that don't care what they said, cause your matter. Now in my body, carry to my head. Every night, and you are what they carry to my bed. Oh, no, no. Don't tell me no, no, no. You can be my partner, never right, it, no, no, no. And we got no man lucky, don't need to party, go. I'm feeling what you're doing, no, that baby, carry go. Carry go. Nobody can promise me. I'm gonna beg, I see you. Now you were the type of my seat. They don't be a keep my key. Oh, no, 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 but you got me coming. Why should I be coming early in the morning? Oh yeah, checking baby in my morning. Coming to stop here, I go make you on. Like, make it. I go show you love it, I'm gonna take it to my city. Don't you get to make I don't know. You want me got to work, all you go see. Fine girl, you know your body bad. Them body bad, come make you take it for Ghana. Yeah, dancing for me, baby, man. Come make you so Hey, don't sleep, don't sleep. Wake up. Can I hear money? Can I hear money? Wake up. Can I hear money? Can I hear money? Wake up. Mira, mira, don't get the moolah. Wake up. Potato, cala. Don't walk, you don't try. You supposed to be tight. Look on me, come let's see my town. Make me wait on my boy. When I like the land, so your name so far. So far, so good. But if I jump, let me see you. Oh, no, let me see you. Oh, no, come. Let me come. Let me see to the moon. Oh, no, let me see you. Oh, no, come. Let me come. Let me see to the moon. Oh, no, let me see you.
Right, we now have more people in the room, and thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the webinar, Design Thinking for No Code and Creating User-Centric Mobile Application. Thank you, Kosiru. I hope I pronounced that well. Thank you, Olajuwon. Okay, Olaronke and I have spoken. Sheon, good evening. Thank you for joining. So there must have been a poll on your screen. Please take the poll. Let's know where you're joining us from. Thank you for joining, Lola Laja. So let's know where you're joining us from. And while you do that, you can also put it to the chat room. I had initially put a sample or a template, and also Andrew and Abiodun have put a template in the chat room. Just tell us your name, what you're doing currently, and what you're doing currently and why you're joining this webinar. So in my case, I had said I'm joining from Nigeria. I'm a product manager and I'm a no-code enthusiast. So please let's lighten up the room. So where are you joining us from? Where are you joining us from? What is your current job role title? And why are you joining us today? For me, it will be, my name is Oluwatayo. It's on my screen. I'm a product manager and joining this webinar because I'm a no-code enthusiast. So please, you can adopt that format. So let's get the party started. And let's get the party started. And it's already 5:10, more than 5:10 actually. I intended to start at 5:10. This is 5:12. So we do not hold anybody ransom. The session is also being live broadcasted on YouTube, and I would attempt to drop the YouTube link if you have family, friend, members that want to probably replay or relive the moment. I'm going to drop the link in the chat room, or they want to, stream on YouTube instead. So that's the YouTube link in the chat room. All right, welcome. Our guest speaker is here. We do not like to keep guest speakers. We do not like to keep them waiting. Thank you so much, Andrew. This really means a lot to us here at Techlitics that you were able to honor our invitation. And I'm sure that we will give you testimonials as we go along, whether during the course of this webinar or even after the webinar, to tell you that, hey, this is what people are saying about your session, because we always have an archive of how we are, whether it's live right now or live on YouTube. We also always have replays that we broadcast to the mailing list. So thank you so much. It really means a lot to us here at Techlitics. So I'm going to quickly dive right in. I'm going to share my screen and talk about what Techlitics is. That should take another 7 to 10 minutes. From there, we're then going to dive into the session proper. I can't wait to hear all of the juice that Andrew asked for us. Me in particular, I'm very stoked. I'm looking forward to your session, and I would be soaking it all in. So welcome. We have a tagline that we call sessions like this, we call it Bits and Bytes. That is, Bits and Bytes, having to digest having to digest tech information in relatable pieces, in small pieces, one at a time. And today we're focusing on no code. And more importantly, to be fair, we're speaking about Flutter Flow. So that would be Bits and Bytes, right? Consuming information in digestible pieces. Right. So today's Bits and Bytes topic is design thinking for no code, how to create is a Centric mobile application. So on the call, from the registrants we have a little over 80 people who had registered for this session. And what we saw that came, recurring, majority of them are product designers. Some of them are independent consultants, which means that there are people who are interested in understanding how they can take their skill further from being product designers, and they can leverage, or they can reskill or upskill rather, to having a no-code skill and be able to bring their design to life. Right. So I'm going to quickly talk about Techlitics. Techlitics, we're a digital transformation institution transforming Africa's energy and digital landscape. We're transforming Africa's energy and digital landscape through innovation and empowerment. We have 3 business expressions that is spanning energy tech, that is Thor, EdTech, that's Techlitics Academy, and that's what we're doing today, and project implementation. Majorly what we're attempting to do is to address critical gaps in operational efficiencies at enterprise level, and to also have some form of human capacity development in the digital first world. Right, so today at Techlitics EdTech, we're driving Africa's growth by equipping its workforce with critical digital skills. And this is in alignment with SDG 4, the goal for quality education, and SDG 8, the goal for decent work and economic growth. Our data analytics course which is our foremost course, is accredited by the CPD certification service in the UK. And we have a blended model of cohort-based learning, practice-driven simulation lab where we have polls and live implementation approach to reinforce learning concepts. So remember, I mentioned Theta Labs, which is the project implementation division. That is the project implementation division that helps us be able to place our graduates on projects for clients so they can learn and intern for a while. Right, so let's talk about the problem we're addressing, or the problem we're attempting to solve and we have been solving. Africa as a whole, Africa as a continent, face, like every other part of the globe actually, or like every other continent on the globe, we face critical skills shortage in areas like data science, cybersecurity, analytics, software development. And it is estimated that by 2030, 230 million jobs would require digital skills, right? And that would risk an $180 billion loss in GDP by 2025. 2025 is just right before us. And currently, the education or training programs that are available are only able to meet 20% of this demand. So we necessarily need to make provision for scalable and industry-specific training to bridge this gap and fuel sustainable economic growth across the continent. So what are our solution or our solutions at Techlytics? So this is how we're solving it. Well, we introduced cohort-based learning model. So our cohort runs 4 times a year, on a cycle of 4 times a year. We have cohort-based model where students are admitted to classrooms. We have practice-driven experience in our virtual live project. So currently we have a web application, an e-commerce store where we're able to teach hands-on, whether it is data analytics or product analytics, to learn concepts like user behavior analysis, cohort analysis, segmentation analysis, whatever it is. We have an e-commerce web application that takes care of that. We're in a simulation environment where we have installed the necessary analytic tools so our students are able to understand this concept in depth. And on the data analytics side, we're also able to use the same platform to teach them critical concepts using Power BI and SQL. Right. The other way, the next way we're solving this problem is we enroll our participants or our graduates in strategic internship placement on client projects via the project implementation division. And last but not the least, while this is in the works, right, is to have an AI-enabled LMS to be able to assist our learners with real-time feedback on assignments, quizzes, and their coding exercises, whatever that may be. Right, so that is, as of today, that is the way we're approaching solving the problems here at Techlytics, or the problem that is plaguing Africa here at Techlytics. So these are the brands that trust us. Either we have done corporate training for them, or in one way or the other, we have implemented a project for them, whether it is usability testing, whether it is requirement gathering. These are some of the companies or the brands that trust us. Right, so about Bits and Bytes, I've mentioned earlier, it's an engaging and enlightening monthly tech series hosted by seasoned professionals. Of course, you can tell Andrew is a seasoned professional in this line, right? And the series delve into the world of technology, and these are the way we're looking at it as of today. We talk about things, emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, data management, analytics and governance, software product management and documentation, local software development, which is what we're talking about today, and project implementation. Right, these are the best teams that work alongside me here at Techlytics. Very wonderful people. Some of them are in the room. If you can, please help me give them an applause. Help me give them, nothing in Techlytics will get done if we do not have Glory, Abiodun, Adenike, Deborah, or Timothy on the team. So thank you. If you're on the call, thank you for building this dream alongside me. Right, this is our guest speaker. This is Andrew. Andrew is a seasoned designer and a creative strategist with extensive expertise in user experience design, user interface design, branding, and project management. It was formerly the head of design at Flutterflow, the tool that we're going to be talking about today when it comes to no-code software development. So it was formerly the head of design at Flutterflow. I'm looking forward to hearing the story of having to build Flutterflow from the scratch, or having to be the part of the wonderful team that built such a fantastic no-code platform. Andrew played a pivotal role in shaping user-centric design solutions that enabled the platform's reputation in the no-code ecosystem. Currently, Andrew leads Calio Designs, a dynamic agency that delivers cutting-edge design solutions tailored to business seeking innovative brand and digital experiences. So my ladies and gentlemen, I cannot ask you to stand up. However, please give a round of applause to Andrew as he takes on the mic shortly, so that we can go forward in this webinar. I'm going to come talk about this later on. But yes, thank you so much. So Andrew, I'm going to be handing over the mic to you so that we can get started. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andrew.
No problem. Thank you for the introduction. Really excited to be here. I enjoy teaching, and I enjoy sharing knowledge that I've gained over the last 11 years of design. So I'll give you a little further background of who I am, and then I'll dive into sort of like the beginnings of Flutterflow and my role there, and then we'll talk about design thinking and implement, and why Flutterflow, provides opportunities for product teams, not just me, not just you, but entire product teams to optimize the product development cycle. Because if you've been in software as long as I have, you've seen multiple products, almost get developed and then fail before launch because the tech wasn't there, or the dev team wasn't there, or the design wasn't there, or the market wasn't there. And Flutterflow helps us sort of launch those apps quicker, get it to the market, get users interacting with it, and be able to iterate at a rate that is optimal, right? Something you can actually get in the hands of customers. So yes, I've been in design since 2013. I taught myself design back then in 2013. Worked with a privacy firm designing my first mobile app, which was very fun. And then I've been in this space for those 11 years. I've also, my wife and I opened a coffee shop in 2015. We sort of, went, and we both really enjoy coffee. I worked design on the side during that time. And really, I dove back into design in 2019, full time. And my design agency, Kaleo Design, I started hiring people. So we've grown from a team of myself to a team of 15 over the last 5 years. And we help startups and entrepreneurs launch their products. So we were just a design agency in 2020. Actually, from 2013 to 2022, we were basically only design. And we helped clients design their interfaces mostly for enterprise level applications or consumer-based mobile apps, right? So we worked a lot in the medical space, a lot in the HR space, and in the real estate space. So those were the main places we designed software for. In October of 2020, Alex and Abel reached out to me via Upwork from, Upwork, just a regular freelancer website. And they asked me to design the interface for their no-code app builder. This was before they had an interview scheduled with YC, which is Y Combinator, and they wanted to pitch a beautiful product to the team at YC. So I designed it. I designed the initial interface for Flutterflow, and I worked with them for 3.5 years. They went into YC, they got funding. I was there for the first sign up, and I was there for the 1.5 millionth sign up 3.5 years later, which was absolutely amazing to be part of a team that moved fast, that was so talented. Alex and Abel are incredible engineers. The team grew from us 3 to over 35, I think, by the time I left. Excellent product, excellent team. But the reason why I was so passionate about Flutterflow is because it allowed me as a designer, right? I don't really have technical skills. I know HTML and CSS, so I could help with websites, but I couldn't implement mobile apps. And that was the thing that I designed the most. I designed mobile apps and software and enterprise level software, so web applications. But I was only empowered enough to design stuff in Figma. There was no tool or platform out there where I could help the dev team implement the front end and implement some of the logic and learn how to build products. I was just designing products and then saying, engineer, figure it out, right? Figure out the logic, figure out the back end, figure out what you need to make this work. And typically it never happened, right? They were like, well, this is, there was a huge disconnect because as designers, we have these grandiose ideas, but sometimes they're not implementable, right? It's very hard to implement it. It's more expensive. It's not ideal. It's not efficient, right? So the beauty of Flutterflow is it allows designers and developers, product managers to come together all in one place and help build a product quicker than traditional development, right? Because you're actually diversifying the skills and abilities. So now as a designer, I can go into Flutterflow and I can design the entire front end of the app. And if we're using something as simple as Firebase, I can actually hook up logic and back-end authentication. I can do all of these things that before I had to have a dev team, right? We would go through a cycle of design and then implementation and then testing and then launching. And now you can do all of those things in one. Okay, sorry, that's a long intro. But one thing I've realized after working on a number of Flutterflow projects, so I built out the entire UI of Flutterflow over my first 3.5 years, all of the templates that you see, all of the sample, not all of the sample apps, but most of the sample apps that you have worked with, if you use them. I was sort of the builder of those. I had to work with Alex on like, what's possible and what can we do and how can we do this, which is super fun. But the entirety of the thing, design in general is about problem solving. And that's what I want to talk about today. I'm on paternity leave. I just had my first son, which is very fun, but I've been able to take some time off of work, enjoy time with the family. And wow, it's like so much work. I don't know how single parents do it, but I've been very thankful I can hang out with my wife and help raise our little son, just changing diapers. It's not really raising. It's like changing diapers and making sure he's entertained when he's up. But I've had time to think and reflect on certain things. And one of those things is problem solving. How do we as a design agency, right? Kaleo has now transitioned from a design only agency to a design and development agency. And man, that transition is really tough because with visual development, you still have to have, it doesn't remove developers from your workflow, right? I think a lot of developers get scared when they see Flutterflow because they're like, they'll take our jobs. Same thing with AI, right? But one thing we have to realize is that 40 years ago, there were no software engineers, right? 40 years ago, software didn't exist. Computers basically didn't exist. Only a few people had them. The internet was very rudimentary, if it existed at all. And now the job market has changed, right? Now software engineering is one of the most sought after jobs, right? It's one of the most profitable jobs you can get. So with this onset of AI tools, visual development tools, never be scared, right? Never be fearful of your job or your skill set, but always be adaptable, okay? I think that's very key when we approach design, development, AI, and no code. But problem solving is such a uniquely human element, right? We see AI models do these fun things and cool things where they can sort of reason, and sometimes they make sense and sometimes they make no sense whatsoever. But what I was thinking about was how designers specifically, so all of the product designers that have signed up, this is for you, right? And this doesn't negate product managers or developers, but I feel like product problem solving and design thinking are right-brained activities. They're creative activities, right? They're not left-brained. Problem solving is not, it's not binary. There's not one solution for every single problem out there. I can tell you, I've designed over 250 products over the last 11 years. I've worked with over 100 teams on launching products, mostly in the design area, now design and development with Flutterflow. Some products are very similar, right? There's similar markets. There's, logic builders, there's search engines, there's CRUD applications, there's CRMs where you're just managing data from users, you're entering notes, you're maybe chatting with users. There's social applications. I have like a small coffee application that I've built where you can just keep track of all of the coffees you've brewed and know all of the specs that you utilize so that you can go back. Oh, I ground at this, at this number. I brewed for this long. I brewed at this ratio, things like that. These things are fun for me. But with each of those similar products, the solution can be slightly different, right? The underlying facet is pretty much the same. You're going to build a software, right? You're going to build a, let's say an Airbnb-like experience, but maybe it's not for Airbnbs. Maybe it's for like bikes, right? So you're gonna try to find bikes around your neighborhood or around your city that you want to find and you want to buy or you want to rent for the day. Let's say similar to like Uber, but let's just say simply that. Now that's the underlying functionality of that application has been built 100 times, 200 times. There's plenty of examples out there. But for your unique use case, right? Maybe you're doing it for homeless people in San Antonio. So there are certain factors there that you have to consider. Now, see, a left brain person is just, hey, we build this application, right? A, B, these are the inputs. C and D, these are the outputs. That's all we need to do. Where designers come in is the in-between, the A and C. It's not A, B, C, D. It's A, B, F, G, F, H, I, J, K, right? Like these are separate things. It's problem solving is not binary. Problem solving is creative thinking and implementing solutions that apply to your target market, to your user base. Now, we design applications for clients, right? We get hired by startups, and so we also have to work with that. There's also a dynamic there, right? They have an idea, they have an app. This is who they're building for. They want certain things in the application. They have their own unique style. They have the features they want that maybe the users don't want. They don't know. So there's all of these things. But that's why we as humans, right, as designers, as problem solvers, need to consider all of these things when implementing design thinking. Now, design thinking is a practice implemented in all software development, right? And all ad campaigns and everything. But specifically for mobile products, we need to ask the right questions. Design thinking begins with the right questions. So whether you're building a product for yourself or for somebody else, asking questions is the key. Dumb questions. Okay, I'm a very simple man. I like to break things down into the simplest forms, and we solve complex problems every day. I mean, Flutter Flow, not a simple problem, right? Not a simple software solution. It is extremely complex, and designing and building that so that over 1.8 million people now can build on Flutter Flow was not an easy task. Okay, but it started with the simple questions. What are we building? Okay, we're building a visual development platform where you can build mobile apps. Okay, great. That's perfect. So how do you do that? You break it down, right? You have simple Flutter widgets. We want to drag that onto a canvas, and we want to customize the styling of that. Awesome. There's plenty of no-code platforms out there. We can just, the general UI, as we say, is pretty similar. You have a left sidebar. You have predefined widgets. You can drag those onto a canvas. You can style on the right. Right. Webflow does this. A dozen Adobe products do this. Figma does. Figma sort of does it. They don't really have drag and drop. It's a canvas creation platform, but stylization on the right is pretty key to that. But the uniqueness of Flutterflow is you have design, you have development, you have interactions. There's all of these things that you have to add on to that. And so you start from the base, you start from the simple, and you get more and more complex. But if you don't solve the simple things first, and one thing I always love asking clients that I work with is like, hey, at the end of this engagement, because typically our engagements are anywhere from 2 months to 6 months. And I just say, hey, at the end of this engagement, what is the product that you want built? What will define success for you? This question helps filter out some of the nitty gritty and it helps us focus on the big picture of what the client wants. And helps us focus on, okay, this is the end goal. Now there's a bunch of details that we need, right? We are designing an application for an e-reader app. And the answer to that question was, I want the e-reader experience to be very fluid, natural, and have an incredible user experience. Okay. Well, there's a bunch that goes into that. There's a lot of logic that's underneath that. We have to, view books. We have to save progress in the book. We have to provide the user with the ability to increase text size, decrease text size, change font style. We have to allow them to just view the specific content on the page. It has to grow to the page. So, you have a 14 pixel font or an 18 pixel font, you'll have maybe 200 words or 400 words, depending on the font size. So we have to dynamically show that. Every time you switch a page, you have to save that page state. All of these things are the complexities that we sometimes get wrapped up in, and then we don't solve the simple thing. The simple thing is build the UI for the book, implement the navigation, right? And then add these levels of complexity to it. If we solve the toughest questions first, sometimes we won't launch because the bugs that come from the toughest questions, the toughest solutions, will prevent us from even getting the base functionality of the application implemented. Okay, so simple first, and then layer on the complexity. This is key for launching products in a timely manner and successfully. I've seen so many products succeed and succeed very well, and I've seen so many products fail because they want to add this feature and this feature and this feature and this feature before they even have a product in the market, before they've actually launched their application. So solving these simple problems, asking these dumb questions to the client or to yourself or to your team is going to help you define the product roadmap that you need in order to be successful. I know that's a lot of gibberish. Sorry, there's some good points in there, but maybe it's hard to comprehend the entirety of what I just said. So I'll try to wrap up in some points. Sorry, I'm not much of a slide presenter person, so I apologize for that. But typically in a kickoff call or at the beginning of a project, what you want to do is you want to ask dumb questions, right? You want to map out a pretty simplified solution. So what we do at Kaleo is we do thumbnail wireframes. We map out screens. We say, hey, this is, basic login screen, create account screen, forgot password screen. From these screens, you'll go to the home screen. On the home screen, you're going to see, in this case, you're going to see a bunch of books, right? You're going to see books categorized by, categorized, right? So you're going to see like top learning books. You're going to see no code books. You're going to see design books. You're going to filter by category. You're going to see the most recently read books, the currently reading book. These are things that you'll implement on that user flow wireframe the wireframe diagram. The wireframe diagram. Okay. Having a map of what you're going to need to build is very helpful. So these wireframes, they're typically 40 to 60 screens. And we basically just say, hey, what is the generic version of a screen, right? Hey, this is a main screen. So there's a bottom navigation bar. There's simple things here. There's a few list items. You can click on these. You can go to this book detail screen. These are very helpful to know where you're going, and it's a great deliverable to have for the client, to give them a vision of what needs to be built. You can also use this as a touch point whenever you're building, right? So in Flutterflow, one of the things I wish would happen, one of the things I really want to happen is the ability to have a multi-canvas view. So currently there's storyboard, but it's not totally functional. But the ability, like in Figma, I can design 100 screens and you can see all of those screens at once. So when Flutterflow implements something like that, it'll be very easy to sort of garner feedback from clients. Currently, we do a lot of design in Flutterflow. Like we go from wireframes to Flutterflow, typically. We cut out this design portion in Figma. We don't do it for all projects, but for our typical project, we do it directly in Flutterflow. That can present some problems because there's less communication around what's completed, right, and what's not, because the client can only go in there and see, select one page at a time, one page at a time, one page at a time. So having something to present to your clients, and we're going to implement better practices around this. We're going to start taking screenshots and implementing them in Figma, right? So that we have sort of like a one-to-one of what we've accomplished in accordance with what we designed in the user flow map, right? We have this 60 screen application that we're designing. We're going to solve problems as we approach them, but this at least gives us a map and an understanding of what we will need to accomplish, some of the problems that we're going to face. Asking those really dumb questions in the beginning will help you. It'll bring up issues that will most likely arise. Okay, so like the example I mentioned, this e-reader application. The whole point of creating this e-reader application was to generate revenue. So, if we just stopped at the really dumb question of, hey, what is your ideal user experience? Well, then we wouldn't get to the point of, hey, how do you actually make money, off this application? And the way they make money is by charging paywalling chapters in a book. So we need to talk about that. Okay, we're going to paywall a chapter. So let's say the first 3 chapters of a book are free. After the 3rd chapter, you have to pay for each chapter. In this case, there's some discounts, right? You can buy 10 chapters at a time for a discounted price. So this reveals another thing that we need to think about in design and development: a paywall design and implementation of a payment processor solution. In this case, we're using RevenueCat. So right then and there, we have a general map, an idea of what needs implemented. And so often in junior designers or in beginning designers or developers or people in the no-code space especially, what I see is they don't ask these questions. They have no vision for the future. So what design thinking does is that it helps us plan for the future by mapping out the things that we'll need to know about, right? Problems we're going to face most likely. And these questions help reveal those answers. And then we can start implementing solutions. Okay, we need a payment processor, RevenueCat, boom. We already know RevenueCat's going to be this many hours, to implement. So allowing the client to know that up front instead of saying, oh yeah, we'll figure it out down the road. Not a great practice in mobile app development. You want to let if you work with clients, right? If you're a contractor or consultant, that's what I do mostly. You want to try to, ease in the conversation with your clients and let them know, like, hey, implementing these things are going to take this amount of hours. Now, you may not know how many hours it's going to take you, but having some sort of ballpark is going to be helpful. You will get that after your experience. So at Kaleo, we know, RevenueCat implementation takes anywhere from 40 to 80 hours of dev work, right? Just getting products in place, implementing all of the integrations we need, testing, making sure it works, getting it working on Android and iOS. All of those things take time. Those things come from experience. I can, after you've done enough of these, you will get better at it. That's the beauty of experience, right? You can tell me an app idea and I can already basically repeat back to you what it would take to build that application. I don't do that because I'm a super talented person. I do that because I have experience building and solving problems, and because I've implemented these practices in every one of my projects, and I've refined these practices. So my design thinking head, right, I can visualize without being binary. And that's the beauty of the creative mind. So designers, I want to encourage you to start thinking about problems you would face in the projects that you get. Don't just design, login screen, the basics, right? The design thinking portion is for the entirety of the application. The implementation is simple and then more complex, right? But you have to know what the most complex thing is in order to plan for that. So your design thinking, you ask those really dumb questions, you implement, right? Like, okay, cool. We need an e-reader application. We need authenticated users. We need the ability to save preferences, save book progress. We need the ability to upload books, right, from the admin. You have to have books from somewhere. So there's a back end where an admin panel exists where you can create books. You can view stats of books. You can save progress, right? You're getting more and more complex in the questions you ask, and you're building out that user map of, okay, in order to build this entire application, these are the things that will be required. So, and with that, you can then ask more complex questions, right? Each of those sort of turnings in the map, if you think about it as a map, right? You know, you're going to have the first point, really stupid questions. The second point, define the simplest form of the application, right? So really dumb questions. Design or map out a really simple flow of the application, okay? And then approach each feature with more and more questions. So what I like to do personally, ask the really dumb questions. You know, from the really dumb questions, you're going to get a general idea of what you need to build. So, and then the main screens that need to be possible in the application. And then I start asking out or branching out to questions about specific features. Okay. Hey, do we have notifications in this application? Okay. Will we have are we just purchasing, you know, books, or are we purchasing chapters, or is there a coin based, or is there is there a token based incentivizer in this application? Do we need to provide for that? These are questions that will arise after you map out that simple flow. So this practice will save you countless hours of client back and forth once you've started the project. So really dumb questions, map out the most basic version of the application, build from there, okay? Build from there. You need user authentication. You need a back end where you can upload books. You need the ability to read books. You need the ability to purchase books, so payment processor. You need notifications. Okay, great. Notifications. We need the ability to tweak, you know, the reading experience in the book. Let's say that is going to be we're probably going to face some problems there when we actually start implementing. So just knowing that and being upfront with the client or yourself or your team is going to be vital for success. So build the complex, right? Start simple, really dumb questions, build out a map, a user map that allows you to understand the entirety of the project, and then break each of those features or each of those elements of the application, the sections of the applications, into more questions that would allow you to understand the complexities needed to actually implement that thing. So I'm trying to think of a recent problem we faced like this, where it sounded really easy, you know, like it was like, oh yeah, that sounds really easy. And then once we got into the feature for the application, it was like 10 times harder. And it was like, oh yeah, like it sounds interesting, but you know, there's all these other things you have to implement in order for something to work. So I think it was like an activity feed. It was an activity. Yeah. So the client wanted, in another project, the client wanted an activity feed that would allow them as an admin to view updates to products. It was for like a e-commerce based application. And it was like, okay, yeah, that's great. We can implement that. That's one collection in Flutter, or that's one collection in Firebase. But with that, you actually have to go to each area that allows the user to edit that product. And you have to implement an action that says create document. And then you have to create a UI to actually showcase that activity feed. And so, you know, it sounds really easy, but it's multifaceted, right? So understanding that and being able to come up with a simplified version of that for the client. Hey, look, this is what we can do. We can do this one really simply. Every time a user edits, we'll create an activity. Every time a user creates something, we'll create an activity. And then begin with that. And then you can end with, hey, when somebody else interacts with it, you know, when somebody views the product, we'll update an activity, right? We'll track this, we'll track that. Do it in cohorts, right? Like you don't have to implement every single feature perfectly the first time. If you try to do that, you will get bogged down with bugs that appear, right? Break things down in simple, easy implementation sprints that can be implemented in 1 week. And that's what we did at Flutterflow. Like the beginning days of Flutterflow, we built really quickly. We broke things, but we got things out. We got features out. We allowed users to actually interact with them. We iterated on those features. We made them better, but we got real user feedback from them. And I think that owes to the success of Flutterflow as a platform, right? We saw exponential growth because we were launching features constantly. And then we're now seeing growth in the platform because it's becoming more stable, right? So there's different life cycles of a product. Knowing which life cycle you're in, which if it's pre-launch, it's pre-launch. That's the life cycle. The life cycle is get a product to the market, right? Don't get every feature to the market. Get a product to the market, and then implement the bare features that you need, right? Again, let's say it's a social media application. Well, I need the ability to create posts. I need the ability to follow friends. I need the ability to comment on posts. That's basically the core implementation of a social network. Now, you also probably need notifications. This is one thing I'm doing in my coffee app. I did a live stream series on transitioning from just an internal coffee notes app to a social interaction coffee notes app where you can like comment on friends' coffees that they've brewed. You can follow friends. You can like and report posts, right? Because that's a social media application. But there's this whole thing of notifications. Now I have to implement notifications in a social application. So these are things that can be implemented in waves, right? Have the ability to create posts, have the ability to comment on posts, have the ability to edit a post, break them down into simple things, and then move to the complex things. You don't always have to solve the most complex problem in order to launch your application. You can solve the most simple version of it, and you can build on that and always make it better. As a designer, having experience, right, to do that is incredible. I always thought when I was a younger designer, 5 to 6 years experience, I don't need that. I'm really talented. Like I don't need that experience to get this job. I don't need that experience to design this application. And now as a seasoned designer, I can tell you I was an idiot back then. I was just inexperienced. I was pretty cocky and arrogant. But I didn't have the experience to tell me how to solve problems. And now I can do that, right? I have the experience now to solve problems, to foresee problems that we will encounter on a product roadmap, and to be able to address them and to help the team come up with a solution that is probably the easiest to implement, and then the best to implement, and then the ideal to implement, right? Those are 3 things, right? You always have to sacrifice either quality, time, or usability. You will most likely have to sacrifice those things in a product development cycle. As a client, you want speed, it's going to cost you. And it may not be implemented with the best usability, right? If you want usability, it's also going to cost you. It'll take a little more time. You're going to have to do some testing, and you won't get features out as fast, okay? If you want cheap, it's probably going to take you time. You won't have the best usability, and it's probably not going to be the best product, right? So these are things that we have to face at all times. An exercise that I do to help me fine-tune my design thinking is take an application, right? Take a common application. You can go to mobbin.com. They have like all these applications in the world. So like Airbnb, they have screenshots from all these applications, but just think of applications. So let's say it's an Uber-like application. And in my head, I will try to create, I'm a visual person, I'm a designer, so I'm a visual person. I've been gifted with the ability to sort of map things out and visualize things in my head. So maybe not everybody has this ability, but you can do this on pen and paper. You can do this in Figma. The key to this exercise is visualizing things that are not right in front of you, okay? Because this is what design thinking is. Design thinking is visualizing solutions to problems that don't exist yet. There's no solution for it, right? So building an integration for API calls in Flutterflow, well, that didn't really exist, right? There was very few examples of API integrations for no-code platforms. It was sort of like a newer thing, right? There were some API integrations for like Zapier and stuff, right? Input this, input that, a few little inputs, and that's it. And Flutter Flows was very complex. So we had to actually think about, okay, what are the things that we want to provide the user? Okay, there's these inputs, and then there's these variables, and then there's a preview that we want to see the output of our API call. Okay, so we did this, right, as a design exercise, Alex and I said, okay, there's a preview. There's the ability to select variables that you receive from that API call. So you only, sharing the things you need in the application, right? Your API call could produce 100 fields. Maybe you only want 3 or 4 of them. So just selecting those fields and implementing them in your Flutterflow application. So you don't have 100 parameters you need to set. You just have the 3 or 4 you need. So visualize solutions like that. Take Uber Eats. Just say, okay, in Uber Eats, what are the key ingredients? Okay, authentication. There's a home screen. All right. There's a home screen. On that home screen, there's categories, there's search, there's favorite restaurants, and there's there's popular now, there's healthy eats maybe. And then each of those, right? That's your home screen. Then there's probably past orders. Okay. There's authenticated users. So there's past orders. There's a search screen. There's a profile. There's an ability to view a restaurant details. Okay. So that's another thing. Restaurant details. All right. In the restaurant details, there's again categories, right? There's breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, drinks. There's the ability to search in the application. Okay. So that screen is probably going to need 2 or 3, right? You're going to need a search active, recent results, maybe search results. Okay. Then you need to product details, right? You need item details there. Let's say it's a coffee shop that we're viewing. There's a latte details. That latte will have options, right? There's the ability, there's the general e-commerce-ness of it, right? Product details, add to cart button, quantity. That's the general. Then there's specifics. There's variables, right? A coffee could be hot or iced. It could be small, medium, large. It could have foam. It could not have foam. It could have whipped cream. It could not have whipped cream. It could be decaf or caffeinated. It could provide the options for an extra shot of espresso, right? An extra pump of sweetness. So this design thinking, the more you do this, the more you do it, again, you can draw it out, you can write it out. I do it in my head. The more you do this, the better you're going to be at design thinking, because a client's going to come to you. They're going to say, hey, I want to build this idea. I want to build the next Airbnb for private jets. Okay. Well, you want to build a place where people can book private jets and book little trips and rent them. Okay, great. So you have the general things. You have a map view. You have, nearby airports. You have nearby planes. Maybe you have prices for planes, what they generally cost, the capacity of users. This is probably going to be a 2-sided marketplace, right? Because it's like Airbnb. So you have people that list their planes. You have people that purchase, or rent their planes. So you have customers, you have pilots or owners. You have the ability, you probably have a checkout process, right? You're going to have recent history. You're going to have past rides, past rentals. You're going to have booked trips. Maybe you book a trip for Christmas and I know you guys are probably booking private jets all the time. I don't, sadly, but you're booking a private jet for Christmas. So, okay, that's an upcoming trip. So you're going to have a card with an upcoming trip with some details. So the more you do this, the better you will be at design thinking, the better you will be as a product designer, and the better person you'll be working with clients. You'll be the ideal solution because you can visualize the problems that you will face and potential solutions. So this is a practice, okay? This is not it's a skill. It's not a talent. It's a skill. It's something that you can improve upon. See, talent is something that we're imbued with, right? Like LeBron James was just imbued with a bunch of talent, athletic ability, court sense, ball handling abilities. You and I, it's going to be very hard to sort of match that talent. But with skills, right? And that's why we see some non-athletic players in the NBA produce at a high level is because they're skilled. They've honed their craft. They've worked on their craft. They become really good at certain aspects of basketball. We, as designers, have the ability to hone our craft. You are not born behind, right, with this. You have the ability to practice this and get better at it and improve. So if you follow that, right, just take apps that are already out there and try to do this exercise. Every time you get a new client, right, or every time you see a proposal for a new client, think about how you would approach that project. Okay, it's an appointments app for a dental office. Okay, what does it require? You know, and do this exercise. Think about, okay, well, probably gonna have users, right? We probably need the ability for a dental office to set hours and availability, meeting lengths, right? Like appointment lengths, maybe. We need the ability to see upcoming events. So from the dental office, we need to have a calendar view where we can see upcoming appointments, the ability to contact those customers. All of these things come from a simple statement. This is what I want to build. This is the app I want to build. So the more you implement this solution finding, right, design thinking process, the better you will be when you actually get client projects, and the more resourceful you'll be. Because our job as designers and as no coders is to provide solutions for clients, right? That's why people pay us. They'll pay us money so we can provide solutions that maybe they haven't seen or thought of. And so the better you are at that craft, the more clients you'll get, and the better you will be at implementing successful solutions rather than, you know, falling into these long product development cycles that don't get anywhere because you don't ask the right questions. You're not coming up with the proper solutions because you don't understand the problems you're facing because you're not asking the right questions. So again, sorry, there were some good points in there, but hopefully it all made a cohesive sense. I can wrap it up, or we can go and we can move into the Q&A session. I know that there was a Q&A session, right? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. I have been scribbling down notes ever since you started. That is amazing. I have some notes. I personally have some questions, but before I go into my own questions, I'd like to open the floor for questions, comments. I like to ask for questions, but while people are trying to remember their questions, I can come up with mine, or I can, throw mine before you. And so for me, I'm going to be approaching it from a product manager's perspective or an independent consultant perspective. Earlier you had mentioned something like, being a no coder does not necessarily mean we want to eliminate the roles of developers, right? So
Correct.
How do we, because if care is not taken, friction can build up. But how do we kind of strike a balance between professional designers, no coders, and developers? That is, how do we ensure better collaboration?
Yeah. Connections and networking is key, right? Like even as one of the most advanced Flutterflow builders, right? Like I still can't develop anything in Flutterflow because I'm only skilled in certain aspects of Flutterflow. I'm not skilled in Flutter or Dart or JavaScript, right? So knowing your limits is key, but knowing that in traditional development, these roles are very binary, right? A developer will develop and a product manager will write tasks and tickets and keep the project on point, right? Make sure we hit deadlines, and the designer will just design, right? UI, maybe solve some problems, that's it. In visual development, because that's what Flutterflow is. Flutterflow is a visual development platform. Reason being, you're writing code, every time you drag a widget onto the canvas, you're just writing code, but you're not typing it. You're dragging it, boom, you're stylizing it, boom. So now you can help the engineer, right? I've worked on 150 mobile apps. Every time I design something, only about 3 of those times that I've actually designed has it been developed in the way I designed it, right? Because engineers have different skills. Their skill is not to implement UI perfectly, right? Their skill is to understand how APIs work, how backends work, how infrastructure works, how security works, right? They're doing all of these things. There's multifacets to it. So as a designer now, as a product manager, you're now able to help the designer, you're able to help the developer implement things to a point that allows them to focus on what they're really good at. So as a designer, I can now create the UI for my authentication flow. I can create error states. I can create the home screen. I can even set up action flows from the home screen to the detail screen. And I can say, hey, now I need API hookups, right? Can the developer now help me with that? And the developer can actually work on the things that they want to work on. They don't want to create UI, right? Like a lot of developers, a lot of engineers, they just don't want to create UI. If you have an engineer like that, that's great. And as a project manager, you have the ability to understand the complexities a little simpler, right? Like I don't think in code. I know engineers think in code. As a product manager, I don't know if you think in code or not. I don't. I think in solutions. And I'm sure you do as well, right? We're not as technically savvy as engineers. So now you also have the ability to understand, oh, okay. So this is how this screen works. This is how this feature works. And the more experience you get, the more benefit you'll actually provide to the client and to the project, because now you can actually say, oh, well, what if we tried this solution to the designer, right? Like you'll get more experience because visual development is just democratizing the development cycle, right? It's not removing elements of the development cycle. It's allowing new team members to infuse their talents to actually produce product-related goals. And by that, I just mean implementing designs, implementing screens, implementing logic. Because at the end of the day, a design in Figma is a design in Figma. Like it can look beautiful. It can function as a great prototype. It can be the next Airbnb. But if you can't turn that into a product, right, into an actual product that you can launch in the app stores or an actual product that you can launch to your customers, it doesn't matter how good the design is. It doesn't matter how beautiful it is, how interactive it is. If you can't do that in Flutterflow or you can't do that in your product development cycle and in your production app, then it won't work. So learning how to work with your team and assign proper tickets as a product manager, I think that's the most important thing. So, sorry, because we face this at Kaleo, right? We have product managers that are like assigning front-end tasks to our back-end developers. And I'm like, no. Like, please understand, right? I'm going to implement all the screens, okay? I'm the front-end developer now. I'm the designer and front-end developer. So I will implement all the screens and all this basic logic. Anything that has an integration, payments, app store stuff, you can assign that to the back-end developer, right? That's what they want to work on. They're really good at it. So democratizing that and not being like, hey, we don't need an engineer. I've never said that, right? We need engineers. We need good engineers. But we need engineers to, now work in the infrastructure of Flutterflow, particularly for our agency, right? We need them to work in the infrastructure of Flutterflow because that allows us to work quickly and to implement the best product. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, that answers my questions perfectly. I mean, it's not to say that no code is taking away the jobs of developers. I mean, there are some probably, like you rightly said, that's what they do best. There are some complex situations that probably even require custom codes that would necessarily need their skill to be able to execute that. Thank you for helping us shed more light on that. Before ask my own second question or to get the conversation going. If you have any question in the room, you can raise your hand, use the raise hand button, or you can leave it as a chat in the comment section or in the chat room, right? So if you were to Andrew right now, so if somebody were to reach out to you like a beginner, somebody who knows nothing about no code, how would you, and this person is probably not technical. Let me paint a scenario. This person works in telecoms and all they've done is customer service, right? And they want to reskill and they believe that no code is the way to go, or maybe they've even identified a problem in their estate, estate where they live, or they just want to build a simple bulk app like the one you have for your coffee shop, right? So how do you advise this kind of person who has no technical skill and who's looking to reskill and in the long run earn some money by either having their own agency or having a full-time job using being a Flutter Flow developer?
I would say there's multiple facets to that, right? Working for yourself, running an agency is customer service. So that's a great example. You have to apply the same mindset, right? You're still taking care of people. You're basically like, I mean, being a barista is the same as running an agency. You have to serve the customer, right? Like I'm always serving the customer. People say like, oh, you work for yourself. I'm like, I sort of work for myself. I can decide when I work, but also I have clients pestering me on the weekends. So, I have to set boundaries. Which I have. So I work when I want to now because we have the experience and we have the ability to help deliver, right? Our focus is on delivery. But as a beginner, I would say take time and learn a skill. So in Flutterflow just launched a new course for like A to Z for becoming an expert in Flutterflow. I have courses on nocodeui.io. I run educational materials. I also have a YouTube channel. I think it's Kaleo Design. I think it's YouTube-Kaleo Design or something like that. So yeah, learn. You have to.
Do you have the URL?
I'll get it. I will get it. There it is. I'll share it here. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
I try to, and I have a bunch of. I do live streams every Thursday. I'm not doing them now because I'm on paternity leave. I'll pick them back up in the new year. But yeah, I do a live stream every Thursday, and really, you have to have skills, right? Like I went to college, right? I got a degree. But that's all I got from college. I mean, I have some knowledge that helped me, some experience that helped me. I had some really good professors that helped me, fine tune my presentation skills, fine tune my thinking skills, and understand how business works. But what I came out of college with no skills. I didn't know any software. I didn't know how to implement anything. I didn't know how to use Excel. I didn't know how to use Photoshop or Illustrator or any of these tools. So in my opinion, you have to know a skill, but just because you know a skill doesn't mean you're a great freelancer, right? Like just because you know Flutterflow doesn't mean you know how to actually produce products. So be open to understanding, listen to podcasts. I think listening to podcasts is a great way of expanding your knowledge base, right? If you're moving into a new field, understanding how experts think in that field is vital. I didn't know that you could grow a design agency, from a freelancer until I listened to Chris Do. And Chris Do explains how to, scale an agency. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's like a bunch of money in agency. Okay, cool. Like, I guess I can try to do that. So knowing how other people in your field, right, are working, how they're delivering stuff is going to be beneficial. For me, I don't think there's an overnight success story here. Like I've always just worked hard. And that's how I have become everything I am today. I thank the Lord for that. I've had really good mentors, and really good bosses that have kept me to, on par. They've been like, hey, your work sucks, fix it. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And they tell me specifically how it sucks. They're like, hey, fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this. So I've implemented those things, but that all takes experience. And if you don't start now, when will you start? So I would say, learn a tool, practice, work on that tool. Nothing will happen overnight. It will take some time. It took me 6 months or 5 months to get my first job in design, but I went full on, right? Like I went from my full-time job, quit it, taught myself design. And in 5 months I had a full-time job in design because I worked at it, right? We like survived off my wife's coffee shop job. Like she was working as a barista at the time. I don't know how we survived, but we did. But that's what we did. And I just dove right into it. Now that may not be the case for everybody. You may have to work weekends and nights and learn stuff outside of your full-time job, right? But learn the skill and then learn the processes that you'll have to implement in order to refine that skill and provide services to your clients, and know the opportunities. So as a Flutterflow developer, maybe you don't just work with clients, right? Maybe you try to build a few apps, right? Just like practice doing that. But also you may not have to find clients. Maybe you find an agency that's looking for a Flutterflow developer. Maybe you're looking for another freelancer that is a backend developer and you can be a front-end developer for them. Look for these opportunities. Look for the Flutterflow marketplace, find other experts and just say, hey, could I partner with you? Like, do you need help with something? For me, again, this is how I started. So this is not a recipe. This is just my experience. But I took on any and every job I could. Didn't matter how much it paid, right? Like I wasn't making anything anyways. So I was like, I took on $200 jobs, $400 jobs, which in the US is like very, very little. Back then, even now, it's like, okay, it's like I can't survive on that. I can buy some groceries, pay for rent, but like I'm not going to live off that. But I took those jobs because it gave me experience, right? It allowed me to implement that design thinking process and refine my abilities, refine my process so that when I was presented with a job that was full-time, I could take it and I could be very successful at it. So I would say learn a skill, learn the platform as best as possible. Figure out what you're good at, right? Practice, share on social media. I find designers off social media all the time, right? You have to share your work. Doesn't matter if it sucks at first. The beauty of a process, the beauty of designing and learning and teaching yourself something is you make progress. And so if your first tweet is something that's pretty terrible and your next tweet is better and your next tweet is better and your next tweet is way better, you see a progress, and your customers, your clients, or people that are looking for work can see your progression and say, oh, this person actually learns quickly. Like they've gotten really good in a short amount of time. So if I can help mentor them, they can get even better. They're just lacking experience. So if I can give them experience, they'll get better at what they're trying to accomplish. So sorry, I think that answers the question.
You have to apologize. I was really, really enjoying it. I mean, another question even dropped in the chat room while you were explaining, but thank you so much. Everything, as I was taking the notes, I was leaving it to the chat room. Like, listen to podcasts to expand your knowledge base. That is, nobody is an island of, nobody can survive on their own by themselves. You necessarily need to listen to experts in your field so at least understand their own design process, their own thinking process, how they implement stuff. I think that's a very wise one. And share on social media. Social media appears to be the new thing right now. There's nothing like, oh, I'm a quiet person or I'm a private person. You necessarily need to put your on so people can find you. Thank you so much. That was very insightful. So I have a question in the chat room that says, can other members of the tech team use Flutterflow, or is it only for designers? So I want to believe that this person is talking from the perspective of maybe they're trying to build a product and they're trying to, well, hey, let me throw it to you. You can refine it.
The answer is anybody can use it. Anybody can use it. It's not just designers. It's product managers. It's developers. It's QA people. Right? Anybody can use Flutterflow. It is a complex no-code tool because it's not no-code. It's a visual development platform. So there are aspects of it that are pretty complicated because you're actually entering into realms of code, right? Which is why I can't build any product in it, because there are certain things you just need code for. But you can learn how to build a page. You can learn how to connect data. You can learn how to connect an authentication flow, send an email, set up actions. These are all things that can be done by anybody. It's not just designers. I speak from a designer's perspective, and I tried to design the platform in line with designers because I see it as something powerful for designers. But no, anybody in the product development team can implement stuff in Flutterflow. You don't have to be scared. Just know, what user type you are. Don't try to overdo the things, right? Like we had a designer that tried to implement the entirety of an application, and then we realized like, oh, that wasn't in line with best practices. So we should have had our developer implement these things, so you'll understand that, you'll learn, right? You don't want your product manager, developing complex logic flows. In Flutterflow, you don't want your designer doing that either. You probably want your developer doing that. But understanding those roles, like being able to actually just implement the UI is great. Being able to comment in Flutterflow is great. Being able to test in Flutterflow is amazing. It's like before Flutterflow, and this is my personal opinion, the product development cycle was so segmented, right? We had designers and product owners, right? Maybe they could see stuff in Figma, and then from Figma to development, it was just a black hole. It was like, could you guys push an update? Maybe like everything was in GitHub, and they're like, hey, can I see an update? It's like, yeah, you can next week. It's like months before you see something. And in Flutterflow, the beauty of it is it's just right there. So development work, design work, logic, theming, right? All of that is present in Flutterflow. You can always see it. You can get feedback on it. You can say, hey, can we test this? Like, hey, can we run through this, element? So I think that's the beauty of it. But yeah, it empowers the entire team.
Thank you so much. Yes, it empowers the entire team. Thank you so much. And this has been very insightful. Thank you. We cannot thank you enough. And I'd like to implore everyone to give Andrew a hand. Let's appreciate Andrew. I mean, he has given us a lot of gems, a lot of value for our time this evening. I mean, we've been on this call for over 1 hour, and everything he has said, I myself personally have to go pick the YouTube recording and relive the experience again, so that it goes. I mean, gets home, and we're going to put out materials from this recording, and we're going to post it on social media, because I believe that the market we're in Nigeria, Flutterflow is not yet mainstream just so yet. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for also staying on the call. We just have a few announcements. Abiodun, could you do that? We just have a few announcements to wrap up the program in another 5 minutes thereabout, which will be wrapping up the session, so that we can go on to enjoying the remaining part of our weekend. Thank you so much, Andrew. So subsequent months, to everyone on the call, in subsequent months, we'll be having series of webinars like this. We'll be having series of webinars in no-code technology to help you understand how things work in no-code. They are totally free, right? They are totally free. And you can check our YouTube channel. We have past recordings of webinars like this on there. You can check our social media. From time to time, we put out summary of each of these webinars. We put it on YouTube, or we'll put it on our social media pages, so that you would understand what that means. So thank you, everyone. In the coming month, we'll be having webinars around data analytics, data governance. We've talked about mobile app development with Flutterflow on this call. We will be talking about the other ones around web app development with WordPress, with Bubble. We will be looking at other courses that are very beneficial to your career development. Thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you once again for joining this call, Andrew. We do not take it for granted, right? So I'm going to be, if there are no other questions in the chat room, I'm going to be closing the session in about another 30 seconds. Thank you. If there are no other questions, Abiodun, are there any questions that I'm not seeing in the chat room? All right, Abiodun is dropped off. Okay, she's still here. All right. If there are no other questions, thank you, everyone. Let's enjoy the rest of our evening and our weekend. Once again, thank you, Andrews. Thank you, Andrew, rather, and my best regards to Styles and
Thank you.
and Wifey. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Hold on,
Y'all have a
hold
great
on a
one.
minute.
Thank you.
Hold on a minute. Okay, so Waliu
Okay,
is
all right.
asking a question in the chat room. I don't know if you have access. Okay, so he said, how do we move forward?
From where we are now. All right, Waliu, thank you for your question, which is a bit broad. So I don't know what exactly, but from next year, January 25 to be precise, we will be hosting more, we'll be hosting Flutter Flow training. Once you leave this webinar, you'll be redirected to the website where you learn the details of what the Flutter Flow trainings would be like. And I'm also attempting to drop the link in the chat room, techlytics.africa. So in the next couple of weeks, months, you'll be receiving more communications about how you can learn Flutter Flow and what opportunities are there for you. Did I answer your question, Waliu? Waliu, you can leave a yes or a no in the chat room. I'm not sure you saw my screen earlier. So from January 25, can you still see my screen? Waliu, can you see my screen? I can. I'll be able to confirm you can see my screen. Okay, I see. Thanks. All right, cool. Thank you so much for committing the 1 hour 30 minutes of your time in this wonderful weekend. And we're going to start having more trainings or more conversations with no-code app development for. And if you have any question, Abiano, please leave the email in the chat room, support@techlytics.africa. You can shoot us an email. We will be more than happy to attend to your questions. If you have other questions, you can send us an email. You can send us an email, or you can follow us or a DM rather on LinkedIn. It's Techlytics. On YouTube, it's Techlytics. On Instagram, it is Techlytics Africa together. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you, Andrew. Enjoy the rest of